I've been growing my own food for as long as I can remember. There is something magical about stepping outside, picking fresh herbs, crisp lettuce, or juicy tomatoes, and bringing them straight to the kitchen. No pesticides, no plastic packaging. Just real, homegrown food. And the best part? You do not need a big backyard or years of experience to start your own kitchen garden. Whether you have a tiny balcony, a small patio, or just a sunny windowsill, you can grow fresh food right where you live. In this video, I am going to show you exactly how to get started. We will cover the easiest plants to grow, simple techniques for any space, and my best tips to keep your garden thriving. By the end, you will know how to grow your own food. No stress, no fuss, just fresh, delicious harvests from your very own home. Welcome to AgeWise. Let's begin. Chapter number 1. Why grow your own food? The benefits of kitchen gardening. I still remember the first time I bit into a tomato I grew myself. It was nothing like the bland, watery ones from the grocery store. It was sweet, juicy, and packed with flavor. It was like tasting real food for the first time. From that moment on, I was hooked. Growing your own food is not just about better taste. It is about health, sustainability, and self-sufficiency. According to the Harvard School of Public Health, homegrown fruits and vegetables tend to be richer in nutrients because they are picked at peak ripeness and eaten fresh. Store-bought produce, on the other hand, often loses a significant amount of vitamins and antioxidants during transport and storage. Gardening also has a powerful impact on mental health. A study published in the Journal of Health Psychology found that just 30 minutes of gardening can lower stress levels more effectively than reading or walking. It reconnects you with nature, provides a sense of accomplishment, and gives you a break from screens and daily stress. And then there is the financial side. The National Gardening Association reports that a small home garden can yield hundreds of dollars worth of fresh produce each year. A single tomato plant can produce over 10 pounds of tomatoes, while a few square feet of lettuce can keep you stocked with fresh greens for months. But beyond all of this, the most rewarding part of growing your own food is the feeling of control over what you eat. You know exactly what is going into your food. No pesticides, no chemicals, just real, homegrown nutrition. If you have ever thought, I would love to grow my own food, but I do not have the space or the time, do not worry. You do not need a big backyard or endless free time to start a thriving kitchen garden. You just need the right plants, the right setup, and a little bit of guidance. In the next section, I will show you exactly how to set up your kitchen garden, whether you have a yard, a balcony, or just a sunny windowsill. Chapter 2. How to set up your kitchen garden. I have seen people transform the tiniest spaces into thriving food gardens. A friend of mine once lived in a tiny apartment with nothing but a small balcony, yet she managed to grow fresh basil, cherry tomatoes, and even strawberries. The truth is, you do not need a massive backyard to start growing your own food. You just need the right setup. The first step is choosing the right location. Sunlight is everything. Most vegetables and herbs need at least 6 hours of direct sunlight per day. If you have a backyard, pick the sunniest spot. If you are working with a balcony, patio, or windowsill, position your plants where they get the most light. According to the University of California's Agriculture and Natural Resources Department, leafy greens like lettuce and spinach can tolerate partial shade, but fruiting plants like tomatoes and peppers need full sun to thrive. Next, consider your growing method. If you have outdoor space, raised garden beds are one of the best options because they provide better drainage, richer soil, and fewer weeds. If you are working with limited space, container gardening is the way to go. The National Gardening Association recommends 5-gallon containers for tomatoes, peppers, and other deep-rooted plants. Smaller pots are perfect for herbs like basil, mint, and chives. Soil quality is just as important as sunlight. Good soil means healthy plants. If you are using garden beds, mix in compost to enrich the soil with organic matter. If you are using containers, go for a high-quality potting mix rather than regular garden soil, which can become compacted and drain poorly. The Royal Horticultural Society advises adding organic fertilizers like worm castings or compost tea to keep your plants. Thriving watering is another key factor. Many beginners either overwater or underwater their plants. The general rule is to keep the soil moist, but not soaked. Stick your finger into the soil about an inch deep. If it feels dry, it is time to water. If it still feels damp, wait another day. Most plants do best with deep, infrequent watering rather than frequent shallow watering, which can lead to weak root growth. Once your setup is ready, it is time to choose the right plants. Some crops are easier to grow than others, especially for beginners. In the next section, I will break down the best beginner-friendly vegetables and herbs so you can start harvesting fresh food as soon as possible. Chapter number 3. The best beginner-friendly plants to grow. When I first started gardening, I made the mistake of trying to grow everything at once. I planted carrots, corn, and even watermelon, thinking I would have a full farm in my backyard. Most of it failed because I did not realize that some plants are much easier to grow than others, especially for beginners. If you want quick success, start with herbs, leafy greens, and hardy vegetables. These plants grow fast, require little maintenance, and give you a harvest in just a few weeks. According to the University of Maryland Extension, the easiest plants for beginners include basil, mint, lettuce, spinach, radishes, and cherry tomatoes. Herbs are a great starting point because they thrive in small spaces. Basil, mint, and rosemary grow well in containers and only need regular watering and sunlight. Plus, they keep producing leaves for months, giving you fresh flavors for your meals without much effort. Leafy greens like lettuce, spinach, and kale are another excellent choice. They grow quickly and do not need deep soil, making them perfect for raised beds or pots. The Royal Horticultural Society recommends cutting outer leaves regularly so the plant continues to grow, providing a steady supply of fresh greens. If you want something that feels more like traditional gardening, go for radishes, green onions, or cherry tomatoes. Radishes are one of the fastest growing vegetables, ready to harvest in just 3 to 4 weeks. Green onions regrow from scraps, meaning you can plant the ends of store-bought onions and get free food. Cherry tomatoes take a little longer, but they are incredibly productive and perfect for containers or hanging baskets. The key is to start small and grow what you will actually eat. There is no point in growing 10 zucchini plants if you do not even like zucchini. Pick a few easy crops, build your confidence, and expand as you get more experience. Now that you know what to plant, let's talk about how to keep your garden healthy. In the next section, I will share essential tips on watering, fertilizing, and protecting your plants from pests so you can enjoy a thriving kitchen garden. Chapter number 4. How to keep your plants healthy and thriving. Starting a garden is easy, but keeping it alive is where most beginners struggle. I learned this the hard way when I planted my first batch of basil. It grew beautifully at first, but within weeks, the leaves turned yellow, the stems got weak, and the plant eventually died. I had no idea what went wrong. Later, I realized I had been overwatering and not feeding the soil properly. Healthy plants need 3 key things: the right amount of water, good soil nutrition, and protection from pests. Watering is one of the biggest mistakes beginners make. Too much water drowns the roots, while too little makes plants weak and stunted. According to the University of California's Master Gardener program, the best way to water is deep and infrequent. Instead of giving your plants a little water every day, soak the soil deeply every few days. This encourages strong root growth and makes plants more resistant to drought. Soil health is just as important. Many people forget that plants do not just need water and sunlight, they need nutrients from the soil to grow strong. The Royal Horticultural Society recommends using compost, worm castings, or organic fertilizers to keep the soil rich. Adding compost every few weeks gives plants the nitrogen and minerals they need to stay green and productive. Pests and diseases can also be a challenge. Nothing is more frustrating than watching your plants grow beautifully, only to find holes in the leaves or spots on the stems. The best way to fight pests is prevention. Companion planting, which means growing plants together that naturally repel bugs, can help. Basil and marigolds keep away aphids, while garlic and chives deter pests. From leafy greens, if you do see pests, try natural solutions like neem oil or insecticidal soap before using chemicals. With the right watering, feeding, and pest control, your garden will stay strong and healthy. But what happens when it is time to harvest? In the next section, I will show you exactly when and how to harvest your crops so you get the best flavor and the most production from your plants. Chapter number 5. When and how to harvest your crops. Nothing feels better than picking food straight from your own garden. The first time I harvested my own lettuce, I could not believe how crisp and fresh it tasted. It was nothing like the bagged greens from the store. But I also made a beginner mistake. I pulled out the entire plant instead of harvesting the leaves gradually, which meant my lettuce was gone in one meal instead of lasting for weeks. Knowing when and how to harvest is just as important as growing the plants. The timing affects the taste, texture, and how long the plant keeps producing. Leafy greens like lettuce, spinach, and kale should be harvested from the outside in. Instead of cutting the whole plant, pick the outer leaves while leaving the center intact. According to the University of Minnesota Extension, this method allows the plant to keep producing for several weeks, giving you a continuous supply of fresh greens. Tomatoes and peppers are best harvested when they are fully colored, but still firm. Many people pick tomatoes when they are slightly underripe and let them ripen indoors. This works, but research from the University of California Agriculture Department shows that tomatoes develop the best flavor when left on the vine until they reach peak ripeness. Root vegetables like carrots and radishes can be tricky because you cannot see them growing. The best way to check is by gently brushing away the soil around the top. If the root looks fully formed, it is ready to pull. For crops like potatoes, wait until the plant's leaves start turning yellow before harvesting. Herbs are best harvested in the morning when their essential oils are strongest. The Royal Horticultural Society recommends trimming herbs like basil and mint frequently to encourage bushier growth. Cutting just above a set of leaves forces the plant to grow wider rather than taller, which means more harvest over time. The most important rule of harvesting is to pick often. The more you harvest, the more your plants will produce. Leaving fruits and vegetables on the plant for too long signals to the plant that it is done growing, which can slow down production. Now that you know how to harvest, let's talk about what happens next. In the final section, I will show you the best ways to store your fresh produce so you can enjoy your homegrown food for as long as possible. Chapter number 6. How to store and preserve your harvest. After all the effort of growing your own food, the last thing you want is for it to go bad before you can enjoy it. I learned this the hard way when I picked a beautiful bunch of fresh basil, left it on the counter, and found it completely wilted by the next morning. That was when I realized that storing homegrown food properly is just as important as growing it. Different crops need different storage methods. Some do best in the fridge, others last longer at room temperature, and some can be preserved for months with the right techniques. Leafy greens like lettuce and spinach need moisture to stay fresh. The University of Maine Cooperative Extension recommends washing them, drying them well, and then storing them in a sealed container with a paper towel to absorb excess moisture. This keeps them crisp for up to 10 days. Tomatoes should never go in the fridge. Cold temperatures ruin their texture and flavor. The University of California's Post-Harvest Technology Center advises storing tomatoes at room temperature, stem side, down in a single layer to prevent bruising. Once they are fully ripe, you can refrigerate them for a day or two, but only if necessary. Root vegetables like carrots and radishes last longest when stored in a cool, dark place. Carrots should be kept in the fridge with the tops removed, while potatoes and onions should be stored in a dry pantry, away from light and moisture. According to the National Center for Home Food Preservation, keeping potatoes in a paper bag instead of plastic helps prevent sprouting. Herbs like basil, parsley, and cilantro stay fresh longer if treated like cut flowers. Trim the stems and place them in a glass of water on the counter. For longer storage, you can freeze them in olive oil using an ice cube tray. The Royal Horticultural Society suggests drying hardy herbs like rosemary and thyme by hanging them upside down in a dry, dark place. For long-term preservation, freezing and pickling are great options. Peppers, green beans, and berries freeze well with minimal prep. Cucumbers, carrots, and onions can be pickled in vinegar to last for months. Homemade jams and sauces are another way to extend the life of your harvest while adding incredible flavor to your meals. Now that you know how to grow, harvest, and store your food, let's wrap up everything we have learned and talk about the next steps in your kitchen gardening journey. If you have been waiting for the perfect time to start, this is it. You do not need a big backyard. You do not need years of experience. You just need a little space, a few easy plants, and the willingness to get your hands in the soil. So what will you grow first? Let me know in the comments. And if you found this guide helpful, hit the like button and subscribe for more tips on growing your own food, no matter where you live. Your kitchen garden journey starts today. Let's grow something amazing.